Hello, YouTube. Ronan Kazi. I'm hoping this is going to be one of my last solo DUA videos. I've sped it up quite a bit, 2.5 times, because this was long. I have my yellow skill build. And I think what I have is a modified build that I've exchanged out one of the pieces for DPS on my chest piece to have Unbreakable. So really there's a couple of ways to get in here. You can fight from outside. I've done that, where you pull everyone out and I go behind the corner, or I come inside here. There's different ways. If you have a weapon, there might be a better way. I haven't researched any of that. I'm just going the ways that I've done. I was taught how to sneak in this way from a bunch of people. Rich 85, Slith Moth, they had a way to get in here undetected. So one of the keys is getting in here. Once I'm in here, it's just the other thing I changed on this build. I changed my backpack skill to be 25% when you kill someone, you get 25% skill damage buff. I used to have perfect shock and awe, but that means that you got to get out of cover to put status effect, or you got to have a status effect to put on them, and then. And it's too much in a solo legendary. Here I'm already on the Chungas. And they go down pretty fast. It's not my most powerful skill build, but it's pretty powerful. Has some regen. There's the dogs. And super lanky slanky. Hey, you're going to get squirted. That's for super slanky. Boom. There, you just got it, Caesar. Now what? Roxy, super slanky says hello. How's that squirt? All right. Sorry. Okay, so I'm cleaning up. I died once going into this. I aggroed these guys on the outside, and then they followed me all over. Even when I died, they still followed me. So I ended up just running in and then taking care of it. This next section, this is a preferable spot if you're soloing for your turret, because you can then reach the healing pots they put down. On 2.5, it sounds like I got the sweetest machine gun in the world. There's Unbreakable fired off. And I think I mentioned before, Unbreakable is one of those things where, for me, it gives me notice that I need to stay down and cover. And this is where the cover system makes a huge difference. You've seen some videos from people like Ultimate Shield 340 where they go over the benefits, and just really, I think that's the intention of the game, is to play from cover. And so when you're in a legendary, that's kind of what you're doing. I'm okay to put it out there. I'm just killing these last couple, and then the Chungas will come. One of the things you're worried about in soloing is if you're skill-based, you're worrying about when your skills are going to run out. So do you need to stop them prematurely? If you know the fights, that's important. That turret's going to get mowed down. It's hard to see because it's so fast, but the Chungas are really no problem here. So this part's pretty easy for everyone getting through this part. These first two sections. It starts getting a little more difficult in this next section. Obviously, I wouldn't have had to speed it up if I didn't get kind of far, so spoiler alert. I will say this, I record, I think I've moaned about how when I use Xbox Game Bar to record in the Division. Let me stop for a second. So I'm shooting through. These guys will come in. And I'm not really worried about them because I have Unbreakable, so I have a chance where I'm going to be okay. You can see in the lower left of my icons, I'm getting that 25% skill damage. And maybe if you're in a group, it's not that great of a skill. And so one of the nuances I want to talk to you about is, and a great piece is that the Ninja Backpack. The Ninja Backpack would be great in a solo build because you're the only one killing everything, so you're getting all the kills. So that's a time when I would really choose to do that. I didn't in this build. This build is ending up being, it's a build that Ultimate Shield used recently. I used to run a 3-piece Empress, 2-piece Hala, 1-piece Wyvern. I have a variation of that on now. And one of the differences in having a 3-piece Empress versus my normal big XP sets is the Empress gives you a skill health, 10% skill health. And that keeps your turret alive a little bit longer. And then you get skill efficiency, and I forget exactly what that does, but it's akin to weapon handling on the weapon DPS side. And this part went relatively fast. There's a couple parts that went incredibly slow because of my playstyle. So this playstyle and this is I'm pulling them back into my fire. In these first 3 areas, it goes pretty fast. And in hindsight, I probably could have kept this at 2 times, and then I could have sped up the parts that are slow. But that would have been a lot more work. Sorry. All right, so now we're going to fight the dogs. Last time I did this with the dogs, I ran right in there like a moron. So I'm not going to run right in there. I'm going to put my skill in there and take care. So in the last video I did about why I will not get past this next part. And so one of the commenters mentioned that they appreciated the philosophical bent. And that's kind of probably an overarching skill set that I'd like to try to have. So I appreciate that they noticed that. I kind of felt a little stiff reading it, but there's some more to it about problem solving. Problem solving's probably a... Oh, before I go into problem solving. So, in this situation, where I can be out of cover quite a bit, I switched to capacitor. And so, if you watched Ultimate Shield's recent video on the capacitor and test subject, that's a great video. And so, it made me say to myself, even though I'm in Legendary, in this section where I can put a lot of weapon DPS downrange, it makes perfect sense to switch to capacitor. So in this case, I have both capacitor and test subject. I keep throwing that spot's a pretty decent spot right there to get everything for your turret. And my turret lasted a lot longer there than it did in the last video. Now Macy, who you never hear about, nope, don't do it. And I'm going to squirt you now. Don't do it. Mace. The dogs are bored. It's really cold here this week here in Michigan. It's where I live in the U.S. And it's going to get warm. This weather's crazy. And just a historical context, there's some balloon from China that's floating across the United States. It's in North Carolina today. And it's causing an uproar. So this is a time capsule video that someone will look at some point. There was a weather balloon flying across the United States. So I'm using capacitor in this section, and it's a really good. It took me a little bit to get up to the 40 stacks, and then when I got there, it was pretty nice. I could tell the difference in my weapon. See, I'm also chewing through the ammo. This section took a little longer. And really what I started having problems with is a couple of snipers. And you're going to see the benefit of something having like something like Unbreakable when you're solo. Because it's like having another med kit. Right, you see I just caught one right there. And that would be ball game before, but it's not now. The other thing I want to mention to you, if you're in legendaries or even more so on heroic or challenging, you should really, on challenging, you should never, this is my opinion now, this isn't how you play a game. This is Ronan's opinion. And you're going to say, I'm going to digress a little bit further. What's the difference? Some of this stuff's just factual stuff. If you do any type of testing, some of this stuff will make sense. But this is my opinion now. I don't carry that Revive Hive because it's just not worth the squeeze. If you can't get through there, you need more DPS. Maybe if you're in a group and you're in maybe a legendary, but even then, you need more DPS. If you have maximum DPS, you can pretty much go through everything. And I'm going to tell you why. If you look at the videos where someone has a lot of DPS, went through there pretty easy. Here's where it goes really slow. Those all red builds have a bunch of DPS. So when you're reducing your amount of DPS, you're just making it harder. So what you kind of have to do, I make a tactical mistake here. I should have pushed, but I didn't push. And so this is going to take a while. This takes a lot longer than this should normally take. So this was a mistake on my part. But really, damage is kind of the key. So one of the things that you see when I'm having the Vile Jammer is I'm damaging everyone, right? So I'm putting out a lot of damage so everyone feels the damage. If I have a skill build DPS, I'm putting out a lot of single target damage. If you're looking at those people who have striker builds, they're putting in an incredible amount of single target damage. So your time to kill is faster, so you can go through the people faster. So in those cases, you need to have a shield. And if you're going to make a mistake and then, maybe for you, the Revive Hive is like Unbreakable. And so that's your kind of canary in the coal mine to either get in cover. But I've been in a lot of legendaries where people will have that and they rely on that and they die and then they get up and they're so far out of cover that they just die again immediately. So it's like you could have been, either healing or. And it gets back to simple math equations now of 3 of 4 people fighting, 75% of your damage is, reduced. If you think about it in a group in a legendary, if you think about, what would be the maximum kind of situation, if you could have like a perfect group for a legendary would be like some type of intermediate skill person that might have vial jammer, might throw out some heals. You'd have a skill build that has a drone and a turret. You'd have a skill build that's a drone and one of those artificial hives, and then you'd have a DPS build, one of those shield builds, either a Heartbreaker or a Striker. And the thing is, you're going to put out so much DPS that you're going to roll through the content. And I've just done it with people, like those kind of builds. I've been in a couple situations where they've had, you know, a shield build with AR, and those are pretty, you know, like 2 or 3 of them. I think I mentioned everyone. There's one of the videos I went through, or I don't know if I took a video of it, but a group I was in, we had 3 of those folks and me, and we just rolled through the content. And those were higher level guys. And by higher level, just to say it again, if you're the first time on the channel, higher level means that you have watch level where you've maxed out all of your watch. So you got 10% bonus on all those items. Additionally, if you're like, I'd say at least level 10 in your expertise, that's going to give you another 10% on stuff. So that's another kind of gauge. And just to give you, I mean, I'm not trying to get to level 21 expertise, but it's taken a long time to get to level 21 expertise because it's the amount of materials need to budge that's incredible, it seems like. And I raised my drone, I think, to level 17. I got to level 15, and it goes through, it's like taking 5 or 6 exotics a time to get it up a point. So, you know, my turret's level 20 and my pulse is level 20. So those just took tons of, that's why I'm doing these legendaries every week, because I need all these exotics. I think the Chunga comes in. What happens is I run too far away, it resets. This is not my normal build, so I get a little nervous because I'm not sure on the damage curve, like how I'm going to put down a Chunga. They're going down pretty fast, but this is the first time I'm playing this. This is a little bit different than my build. Normally, I put it on the bar, and normally I get shot and killed. So this is the farthest I've ever been solo in District Union. And I died here. And I didn't die like against the Chungas. I would have beat them. It was like my max DPS build and skill. I died because I was running and I got shot in the back. Coward, running away from the battle. Just for your information, if you come back into this area, the Chungas will come far, but then they'll reset and walk back out of the room. So you're pretty safe right here. When you're dealing with Chungas, they have a hive effect that you want to make sure that you're never too low. It puts a bleed on you too, so you don't want to let them get too close and put that bleed on you. You can mitigate it a couple of ways. You might have some regen, armor regen. You might have some other things, but normally if I know I'm going to face Chungas, and this is a case where you need DPS. This is, from this point on, it's a DPS race. But I have that yellow build. It's a survival build with improvised gear where I can have, with survival, and 6 pieces of 12% reduction on elite damage. I got 80% reduction on elite, and here I'm running low on ammo. So I'm going to use Pestilence, because I'm going to need a little bit of that tick damage. And this section took a little bit longer than normal. So let's see what we covered. This is a slightly different build. Might have, I have a skill efficiency, which I don't know exactly what that's providing extra. Especially the drone has a little more health, so it lasts a little bit longer. The drone can be infuriating. All the skills can be infuriating. They're much better than they were in Division 1. But depending on where you set the skill, sometimes you can set it in an area where it won't really function. So What's happening in that section is there's a bar area. One wave of people are just normal little scrubs, chargers, maybe a couple of maybe people that have drones. Sorry for the and they have some snipers, and the snipers are what causing me to be delayed. So usually fight at that bar, put a turret there, and then if you're in a good group, they won't come that far. This room's kind of awkward for groups sometimes because it seems easy, but there's a dog leg to the right where the enemy's behind. And so you got to constantly be aware of that. That's where the pulse is fantastic in this one. I just pulse them to death. But I don't have that on here. I'm just skill build. And so I've also mentioned I use Unbreakable because a lot of times I can't focus for that long. And you're going to see, like, this video is a long video. This was a long slog to get through here. So you like make little mental mistakes. You press a little bit. You go forward when you shouldn't. And that's really the thing about Legendary is it's more of a marathon, not a sprint. And getting back to the DPS section of it, a DPS, some type of DPS build always helps you move through this stuff because it's still... Modern game design isn't going to let you turtle. It forces you or compels you to move forward. Or in my case, run backwards a lot. So at this point, I'm worried about how am I going to beat the boss. And I'm also worried about this next section. Normally when I did DUA, this next section was, you run up to the 3rd floor and then you're dealing with a couple Johnny Fives that are grenading you to death. And then when you get done with those, you're dealing with some Chungas. And I'm thinking now I'm going to fight it from the floor. I'm not going to go to the 3rd floor. So that reduces the amount of Grenadier action, but then I have nowhere to run with the Chungas. But if everything I'm telling you is valid, then I need more DPS. So do I have enough DPS to melt the Chungas before they get me in that little room? And this is kind of what I'm talking about. This is a versus when I say, hey, I don't like the Healing Hive. I have no data to back that up at all. That's just like a personal preference. The more DPS is just factual because this is, in essence, a math race. Imagine you're in 6th. Imagine how good everyone in math would be if you had to play a video game and during the battle you had to stop the battle and say, what's the current trend? Who's doing more damage? If their rate of fire is X and it's doing this, can you change your weapon? These are all those things I think would help people in education if you gave them a practical thing that they care about. And maybe it's not video games. Maybe for people like video games when they're in school, that would help them. And maybe it's something else, how to make the number of likes on your social channel. But that seems like that would help people learn if you gave them something they were interested in. But I'll get off my soapbox. All right. So I'm fighting this next section. This is normally some groups you run to the top. This is one of those places where groups have problems because half the group runs to the top. Other half stays down here. I've started staying down on the bottom with lower powered groups because at this point I have my high DPS build and I'm positive we're going to make it through here. When you got a high watch level group, you can go up in the top. I don't know if it's any different. I mean, you have this one run and maybe someone has a video how to get up there without setting off the alarms. One thing for sure, this is a note. I didn't always know this, but I've noticed it to be true. If you have a drone on when you move up to the stairs, they can hear the drone and so it alerts them. So when you're trying to be stealthy, you probably shouldn't have a drone. Not 100% positive. That's a pretty sure. Another benefit of having skills and high skill life is the Chungas are going to hive the skills. They're not going to hive you. They're going to hive the skills. And you see that part goes pretty easy. So this was fairly easy, this part. This is, then you got the dogs. And I like to think if you're a technician, you should just really own dogs. You get an extra 10% damage. When I'm pulsing them, it's like the absolute best. What I didn't do in this game, except for that first part, during this run, I didn't change kits a lot. I don't want to say this. I'm going to say this. I don't know if it's true. But I wanted this to be my last time I'm going to film myself solo in DUA because I've done so many of these. So I would be tired of it. But I never tried to go all the way through. I mean, I tried the last time, but I died. So this was my only really effort since then that I'm going to try to make it through. There's a lot of videos, like I'd like to do different exotic weapons. Someone had that. They wanted to know kind of what exotic weapons. I almost always rotate to weapons that have some type of damage over time. So in general, no matter what game I'm playing, I'm looking for some type of leeching skills. So I damage the enemy and I get my health back. That's number one. I'm also looking for some speed up skills so that I do more damage per second. That's every game. I don't care what the game is. I don't care what we're doing. I'm looking for those type of things. How can I heal myself while I'm injuring you? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's Roxy. Roxy had a little bed. You're going to get squirted, Roxy. Roxy had a little bed. Caesar ate it, and now Roxy continues to eat it. These dogs. All right, so I get through there. And here is a pretty tough section. This section has drones. Doesn't really have any chungas. It's just kind of more you got to stay alive and put out damage. I've never done this solo here, so I'm not sure how far they'll come. Will they come in the room? If someone comes in the room, I'm in trouble. So that's why I put my turret right out front, outside the door. In this room, the last windows next to that wall in front of me are open, so you can get shot through there and you can shoot through there. You can also go into cover over there. It's kind of makes this room not great. There's not a lot of places to hide in this room. You can hide right here. You can hide right in front of that window. And so what I'm trying to deal with here is I have grenadiers and I have those drones, and it's just a battle of attrition. And maybe if I had a faster skill build, maybe I would just keep throwing grenades out there, because then that is really putting pressure everywhere. And so this is an example that you can see, because I'm not pulsing them, I'm not putting pressure on them, so they're coming up all the time on me. Because normally they're just sitting there dying, and you'll hear them talk. They'll go like, "What's happening?" Like whatever, but try not to do that. And I do have some builds. There was a point when I would make that jammer build, it did maybe 40 a tick. Now it does like, I'm going to round the numbers. It used to do 40 a tick, now it does 80 a tick, but I used to have way more skill damage. And that'd be perfect for something like this. And now I've min-maxed it so I have really fast pulsing, so I can grenade and pulse. So the idea is I'm just throwing out a ton of damage. Always about this time in the video, I'd like to thank everyone that views the videos and watches them. It's when you start doing something like this, that people watch your videos are great, that people are inspired to do their own videos is great, that people do videos. It's great. I'm not a big, I'm not a big Division 2 looking at what other people do because I think I know what I'm doing. So I will look at the people who look at this channel because they've made comments to me and we go a certain way. But one thing that I've kind of tried to tell you I wasn't going to do is do a lot of videos where I'm just doing build after build that I don't play. I will do videos on builds I play. I will do videos on builds you suggest and see how I can do them. What's fair, and here's what I will tell you. If I'm going to do build videos, I'm going to do them in heroics because it's idiotic to do a build in a heroic because, or excuse me, in a legendary. I'm going to do the builds in heroic because you can really make the build shine. Legendary is a different animal. It's not better or worse. It's just a different type of event. So that's kind of what's going on with that. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. And do you want the good news or the bad news? Oh, I will tell you a quick story. On one of the videos, one of the people thought it was clickbaity, and I thought that was funny because if it was clickbait, I'm doing really bad at clickbait. This is kind of a clickbait. This is good news, bad news. Which one would you like first? Good news is, well, I'll tell you one more story. First time I watched Lord of the Rings, I'm watching with my son, What's All the Fuss About? We're watching on like HBO or something. And we get near the end. I've lost track of time. I'm so enthralled with this movie that then it cuts where they go on, they start walking, Sam and whatever start walking. And I'm like, wait a second, it's not done. Good news is there was a part 2. Bad news is you're going to have to see what happens in part 2. So thank you if you got this far. I really appreciate you. If not, you're going to see part 2. And I'm going to tell you, part 2 is rocking. So I'm almost at the end. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.